Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 65. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us this Wednesday. Hopefully you missed us. Just had the show on Tuesday, recapping the Monday night game, but staying on schedule with our regular Wednesday show. We'll try to make it a shorter one. Not always the case when Dave and I get on the mic, but a couple things to talk about. Wanted to review the Dolphins game more in depth after the All-22 drop, some roster moves, some workouts, and some other odds and ends to discuss. Dave, how you doing?
All right. Happy Wednesday. Happy week 16 of the NFL season. December football, obviously, in swing here. The Steelers got a big game coming up on the road against the Detroit Lions on Sunday. So after this show, I'll start, and I know you will as well, too, start diving into the Lions tape, and quite a test. Look, you want a good test and know if you can potentially beat some playoff teams should you make the playoffs. This is definitely a good warm-up game, I think, for that when you talk about Lions, because they're still fighting for their playoff lives. I think they're in the number 8 position when it comes to seeding in the NFC. So they definitely need to win this game and still probably potentially get some help as they wind out their schedule there. So we got a few things to talk about. I went through the All-22 and watched Dylan Cook specifically and looked at some running game aspects and watched a little bit more defense. So and I think we have, as you mentioned, a little bit more additional housekeeping to talk about today.
We do, so let's jump on in. A couple of roster moves being made. The Pittsburgh Steelers losing rookie wide receiver Keyshawn Williams to waivers. The team waiving Williams ahead of Monday's game. That made room for Marquez Valdes-Scantling to be added to the 53-man roster as part of the pre-kickoff moves that Pittsburgh made. They elevated 2 players. They still wanted to bring up Valdes-Scantling, so they had to sign him to the 53, and that's why Williams was waived. I'm sure Pittsburgh was hoping to get him back on the practice squad, but that is no longer the case because the Cincinnati Bengals claimed Keyshawn Williams off of waivers, so he will likely finish up the season in Cincinnati that time of year. Bunch of waiver claims made around the NFL yesterday, Dave, as teams that are out of the playoff picture, including the Bengals officially eliminated by the Ravens over the weekend, are looking towards getting some looks at new people and maybe building that offseason reserve future contracts roster. And so Williams will be in Cincinnati now.
Yeah, look, didn't they cut loose Jerome Burton recently, and then he had been inactive anyway. I think scratch for them, but probably means T. Higgins. Probably not going to see a lot of T. Higgins for Cincinnati. I think he's dealing with like a second concussion or something like that. So yeah, They probably would have liked to have gotten Williams back to the practice squad, but obviously claimed off waivers. So probably done with him for the season, unless the Bengals were to cut him loose. But claimed, those things kind of happen this time of year, and obviously, as we talked about the other day, we'll see what happens. Alan Lazard officially hit the waiver wire yesterday, being waived by the Jets. So by this afternoon, we'll know whether or not he was claimed by any team, and if he clears through waivers, as we mentioned, we'll see. He's probably going to land on if that happens, he's going to probably land on a practice squad somewhere. So we'll end up seeing whether or not that's the Steelers. And the NFL sheet yesterday was filled with tryouts of players around the league. And it's that time of year when you get later on into the last 2-3 games of the season, teams start looking at filling their off-season rosters with off-season signings that are, most of them termed as reserve futures contracts and all. And the Steelers had a long list of players in, and a couple of notable ones too.
They did, and just a quick note, the Bengals had lost their ace return man, Charlie Jones, to an ankle injury against Baltimore, so I imagine that's why Keyshawn probably coming in to help them out to finish out the season. But you're right, they released Burton, and Higgins is injured, and they're just looking towards 2026. So the Steelers bringing in a host of players for workouts yesterday. The most notable name among that list is quarterback Hendon Hooker, a former top 75 pick third-round selection of the Detroit Lions in 2023. Big, strong-arm quarterback, lack of mobility, kind of a one-note passer, never worked out in Detroit. So he was brought in. So was quarterback Jack Plummer, a former undrafted free agent out of Louisville. A bunch of receivers and running backs brought in. Also a tight end, a familiar name in J.J. Galbraith, who was with Pittsburgh in the offseason, signed with the Steelers as an undrafted free agent, earned a bit of spring buzz, went through training camp, kind of lost some of that shine, inline blocking, struggled, lack of size, rookie tight end trying to make that jump to the NFL level. He was on the Pittsburgh practice squad for the first about 2 weeks of September before being waived, and so they brought him in for a workout. As of now, none of these players have been signed, but the Steelers also releasing John Rice Plumlee from the practice squad, so there is an open spot on the P squad right now. We'll see if any of these guys fill it.
All right, is that 2 open spots because of moving
Yeah, MVS.
MVS?
That's true. Yeah, I wasn't. It's so fluid. I hadn't calculated if they were at 17 or 15 or 16 names. So I think you're right. There are probably 2 spots now available.
All right, we'll see if those get filled potentially even while we're on the podcast today. So we'll be on the lookout for that this morning as well too. And I think they brought in someone, a linebacker or was it a running back, I think, for a visit, right? Or a linebacker, one.
It was a running back. Ian Wheeler was listed as a visit
Right.
and not a tryout. So I guess he didn't actually go through a formal workout. Not sure the reason for that. This team did also bring in an interesting name at tight end. That's Colin Granger. He was a basketball player at Coastal Carolina. I think he actually played in the NCAA tournament this past year, and he was trying to make the transition from basketball to football at a 6'8" tight end. Was in Carolina briefly this spring. I think he'd gotten hurt. A hamstring injury, was waived in May. But that was an interesting name just for the story of it all. But again, none of these players have signed so far.
All right, and I believe on Instagram I saw this morning old buddy J.C. Hassenauer retired from the NFL this morning, and makes you go back to a couple years ago when the Steelers rode with Green, all the Kendrick Green, all those games, and then finally at the end of the season switched off of Green to Hassenauer. Makes you kind of wonder maybe if they could have, how things may have gone that season had Hassenauer been the starter at center for a couple more games.
Was he the center for Ben's last NFL game against Kansas City? The wild card game? Was he the center that day?
That's a good question. What year?
Because I think that was the year, right? 2021, Ben's last year.
Let me see if I can find that real quick here.
Or was that 22? I'm trying to think. I want to say that was 21, but you tell me.
Let's see.
Undersized guy, certainly had some sort of career with, I think, in the UFL back when that was a thing, whatever it was called back then, USFL. But kudos to him for a career, undrafted free agent, undersized guy, doing what he did the NFL level was no small feat. So wish him the best in retirement.
Yeah, JC. Here. It's always fun to go back and look at these game books here. That playoff game on January 16th, 2022 against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City there. The offense, let's see.
Yeah, how many of these guys are left?
Let's see.
I mean, you can rattle off the name.
Pat Freiermuth is still left on that team. Boswell. Who else? Killebrew, but he's on IR, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, Cam, TJ.
Christian Kuntz.
What was the starting 5 that day? Hassenauer at center, you said, right?
Dan Moore, left tackle. John LeGlue was left guard for that game. J.C. Hassenauer at center. Trey Turner was the right guard, and Chukwuma Okorafor was the right tackle.
I think the kids call that a glow up for where they're at, sitting in 2025. So big change, big investments to this offensive line, and what a difference a couple years make.
Let me pick out the guys that are still on the current active 53-man roster from this list. Didn't know I was going to go down this rabbit hole today. Mason Rudolph. Man. Kuntz. Killebrew's on IR. Boswell. Freiermuth on offense. And on defense, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith. And that's it, man.
Wow. We've talked about the roster turnover not just this past year, but 2 years ago, that Omar Khan and Andy Weidel and Mike Tomlin have undergone big changes to this roster. I know that you could probably look back at any roster from 3-4 years ago and see the changes, but for a team that's not gone in a rebuild mode like Pittsburgh and has tried to retool, the roster is, almost unrecognizable from Ben's last game.
It really is, really is. All right, that's it. That's an interesting rabbit hole. So congrats to J.C. Hassenhauer there.
And on Plumlee, the reason for his release, you've gone through your set of mobile quarterbacks to emulate in practice, the Lamars, the Josh Allens, the Caleb Williams. Wouldn't be surprised if he came back in Week 18 for that great rematch against Baltimore, but you got 3 quarterbacks right now, and of course Rodgers practicing fully. You have Mason Rudolph and Will Howard, so don't need to have Plumlee emulate Jared Goff this weekend.
Probably not. Don't have to worry about him. Probably have to worry about him running as much as Tua did this past week here. So yeah, that's a good point. The final week of the season, it'll be interesting to see maybe if they get Plumlee back there to kind of emulate Lamar Jackson.
Not to go down more rabbit holes, but this is why these shows are always 2 hours. It's so interesting that a lot of practice squatters hang around because of the scout team. Value that linebacker Pittsburgh had signed with Mwaga a couple weeks ago. That was for some depth. They had some injuries there, but also to emulate when you're facing Reggie Gilliam and Buffalo with their fullback, and then you're facing Miami and Alec Ingold and their fullback. And Mwaga had some fullback reps with the Raiders, and so I assume he was doing scout team stuff for them, some of that card offense. So it's just interesting to kind of see the way that you create value for yourself, even if that's not necessarily to your specific, maybe overall skill set or long-term outlook, but in terms of, can you give us a look that maybe someone else on this roster couldn't do? And that's where Plumlee hangs around. That's where these, guys like Mwaga hang around. So just interesting to kind of see these things work.
All right. Anything left over from housekeeping? And we beat up the Mike Tomlin Tuesday press conference pretty good. Was there any low leftover hanging fruit there?
No, we covered it really well.
All right. Let's talk a little bit of math and on this Wednesday morning, and more specifically about the playoff picture right now. And currently, the Steelers are obviously 8-6. They are the number 4 seed in the AFC. It really feels like whoever's going to win the AFC North is going to potentially end up in that number 4 seed. Now, the Steelers play the Detroit Lions in Week 16. The Ravens play, I think, on Sunday night at home against the Patriots. Here is something that, as of right now, the Steelers, and this won't change before the weekend, the Steelers cannot clinch a playoff spot in Week 16 there. So there's that aspect of it here. Now, one thing that I started to think about, we could kind of work through it here, is what if the Steelers lose this game to the Lions and the Ravens beat the Patriots? The Steelers would still technically hold the AFC lead because of the head-to-head win over the Ravens a few weeks ago. But both teams obviously would have the same record there at that point. And it would, if such a thing transpired, then it would really make the Week 18 game against Baltimore winner take all for the AFC North division, assuming the Steelers lose this week and the Ravens win. Now, if the Steelers do in fact lose to the Lions and the Ravens win against the Patriots, what does that do to the Week 17 game for each of the teams at that point? I mean, it because even if the Steelers were to beat Cleveland and let's say the Ravens lose to the Packers, it still would set up a winner-take-all situation in Week 18 between the teams. So I guess what I'm getting at here is there a scenario where one or both of the Steelers or Ravens decide to kind of, rest some starters, I guess, for lack of a better word, for the Week 17 game, knowing that it's really kind of insignificant in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, it's an interesting proposition, and it's to use the Tomlin phrase from Tuesday, we'll cross that bridge if and when we come to it. But I'm not sure if you're going to see a lot of resting in week 17 because you still want to play your best football for that week 18 game and then to rest and then to have to go in and maybe have a little rust to knock off, just kind of get out of your rhythm when you're resting guys. It's just harder to rest in general too with only so many guys that you can play. So maybe if you were in that Lions game and it was second half or maybe in that scenario, you said week 17 game would be irrelevant. I'm sorry. You said
Yeah, well,
the
potentially
Browns
week
game for
17
Steelers.
because and really I mean, can the Steelers take that off because if they were to lose to the Lions, you have a divisional game, you have the whole
Right.
conference divisional game aspect of it there. Maybe someone can listening can walk through the math, a little bit better than I can, but uh
Yeah, because Pittsburgh really needs to beat the Browns to have that divisional tiebreaker to make sure that the Ravens don't have a divisional tiebreaker over Pittsburgh or no?
no, if Pittsburgh beats Baltimore, that's it, at this point.
Yeah, fair.
Because
Yeah,
they would own the head to head against them. I suppose you could get into some funky potential wild card spot, but I mean, it's so low of a chance.
mhm.
I think at this point for either the Ravens or the Steelers to end up as a wild card. At this point, I think because look, you have Houston in the 7th spot. The Steelers would lose tiebreakers with both the Chargers and Buffalo because of the head-to-head losses to both of those teams. I suppose if Jacksonville went on a losing streak and was in battle for that, but even they right now have a better quote unquote conference record than the Steelers do. I mean we're going down the rabbit hole early, but I wonder. I'm going to be busy with the playoff machine, I think,
Yeah.
depending on what happens, obviously, this week. Best case scenario is obviously the Steelers win against the Lions and the Ravens lose to the Patriots. And then that obviously makes it a must win game for the Ravens in week 17 versus the Packers, because if they were to lose 2 games in a row and the Steelers beat both the Lions and the Browns, then the Week 18 game becomes, I think, meaningless for the
Right.
Steelers. Then at that point,
Yeah, Pittsburgh is 2 games up going into that Week 18 game that Pittsburgh has locked up the division, and I'm a little distracted because you got a bunch of NFL news coming in. Tua officially benched by the Dolphins. Dolphins will be turning to rookie Quinn Ewers for, I guess, the rest of the season. So Tua's bad performance against Pittsburgh, the final nail in the coffin there, and maybe his tenure in Miami. We'll see. The contract's heavy, but getting benched this time of year I think, speaks a lot about the future. Pittsburgh will know before they kick off week 17 where Baltimore is at, because Baltimore plays their week 17 game on Saturday night against Green Bay at Lambeau.
good point.
And so Pittsburgh will have a good lay of the land there. Again, do you want to rest guys maybe in a game like that where you're up, maybe in the fourth quarter, you take some guys out then and work on managing snap counts? I don't know if you go full rest, though, because you want to be playing good football, and Pittsburgh is not exactly, even though they are stacking some wins and rising, which is really important, they're not kind of sitting there on all cylinders right now. So I think you kind of still play the game, and maybe late in the game, fourth quarter, if you're up 2 scores, you pull Rodgers, pull a couple of starters, and kind of finish that out to get ready for week 18. But I don't think we'll see a big material, true benching all the starters in week 17, regardless of what happens.
And obviously, there could, I guess, be a scenario where you can increase your seed to some degree, but I think a lot would have to happen, for the Steelers or Ravens for that matter to be able to jump, from let's say the 4 to the 3 seed or whatever.
Right. That scenario is increasingly unlikely, but not impossible, I suppose. Is there any scenario in which Pittsburgh will have a better record versus common opponents than Baltimore as a potential third tiebreaker? Because it goes head to head, divisional record, and then I believe it's common opponents, common games after. Yeah, it is. Right now, I think Baltimore has a 1-game edge, but depending on, because the Ravens are playing common opponents, the Patriots and the Packers. Of course, 2 teams Pittsburgh played. They beat the Patriots, lost to Green Bay. Is there a world where Week 18 is still meaningful, but Pittsburgh also has the edge in common opponents?
Well, the only way, I mean, because if they beat the Ravens, it's over because they own the head-to-head to them.
Yeah, I'm saying if they were to lose that game, could they still have tiebreaker over Baltimore based on common opponents? I hadn't
Only,
worked out all those scenarios.
they would have to. Let's see. If they lose to Baltimore, I mean, they obviously would have to beat Cleveland, right? Because they would be 3-3 in division. What would Baltimore's record in division be if they beat the? I mean, they only got one divisional game
Yeah,
left, right?
both teams would be 4-2 if Pittsburgh beats Cleveland week 17 and Baltimore beats Pittsburgh week 18. So that tiebreaker is moot because you're tied in
No,
that
just,
tiebreaker.
if Baltimore beats the Steelers, okay, you're talking if they beat Cleveland, though.
If Pittsburgh beats Cleveland and loses to Baltimore, they're 4-2 in the division, and then Baltimore beating Pittsburgh makes them 4-2 in the division.
Oh, I'm lost. But I think I see what you're saying there. Every scenario that I think that I ran through at this point, assuming Baltimore wins one of their next two games, I think it's winner take all
Okay.
in that Week 18 game.
So there's no scenario in which week 18 is for all the marbles, or in a sense where both teams could finish with the same record, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, and Pittsburgh have tiebreaker.
I
Pittsburgh
think
has.
the only way that comes into impact either team is if they're vying for some other wild card spot.
Yeah. Or, I don't know, in a world where Pittsburgh drops to Cleveland and then beats Baltimore in week 18. I guess I'm just trying to say, is there a scenario in which Pittsburgh can lose to that game can mean something? Pittsburgh loses. I don't know. I know we're both getting really messed up
Yeah.
here, and we're doing this on the fly, and it's probably public math that we should not be doing over podcast airwaves right now. But take care of business, obviously, just one game at a time. If you can be 2 games ahead of Baltimore going to week 18, obviously you clinch the division. All this becomes moot. You're going to need some help. Obviously, Pittsburgh can't control that because if Baltimore wins out and Pittsburgh wins out for week 18, then it is seemingly winner take all for the season finale. But you just control what you can control right now.
It would be great, though, if for some reason the Steelers won their next 2 games and Baltimore loses their next 2, then you get kind of a mini bye week, if you will, to rest some people against Baltimore in week 18. But you do kind of wonder how much Mike Tomlin would do that,
Right. Yeah, that a fair question. Each coach is different. Tomlin has generally rested starters, though, in meaningless week 18 games, so you've got some history there, but each year is different based on the team and how they're playing. But with an older roster, I think you probably get your guys some rest because you've played a lot of snaps, especially defensively this year.
I think it is a good point you make, though, about that Thursday night game between Baltimore and Green Bay. So you get to see what happens there.
Who is the most likely 5 seed right now? If I can just make more complicated scenario questions where we assume that Steelers or Ravens, let's assume Pittsburgh for now is the 4 seed. They'll, of course, face the 5 seed hosting a playoff game. It looks like.
Well, the Chargers have got a tough road here. They got the Cowboys, the Texans, and Denver coming up here. And then Buffalo has Cleveland, the Eagles, and the Jets. And the Eagles might have could potentially have, I don't know, they probably still could increase their seed. I don't know. But it feels like Buffalo's got at least 2 gimmies in there in Cleveland and the Jets in their final 3 games, whereas the Chargers feels like they have a little bit tougher road.
Looking at one website, playoff odds for the 5 seed, I'll just list all the teams that have above a 1% chance of the 5 seed. Denver, 5%, New England, 13%, Jacksonville, 6%, the Chargers, 26%, Buffalo, 46%, Houston, 5%. So Buffalo or LA, the 2 most likely teams, but there are still scenarios in which virtually any team in the playoff race right now can be that 5 seed.
And who would you rather play at home? The Chargers?
I typically don't try to root for things too much because be careful what you wish for. I mean, Pittsburgh has lost to both teams this year and played a really bad game against the Chargers. Granted, that was in LA and not in Pittsburgh. But yeah, if you made me choose, I'd still probably choose the Chargers. But again, I'm not really having a significant rooting interest either way.
All right. That was almost meaningless rabbit hole.
What do we accomplish?
That I sent us down. But somebody listening, go through the math and send us an email on that, and make sure you double and triple check it.
Yeah, I mean, we play around with playoff simulators, so I'll probably do that at some point before kickoff. And as we get closer to the end, it's easier to map things out. I mean, there aren't really many teams in contention right now for the AFC playoffs, right? There's 9 teams. Everyone else has been eliminated, and the Colts basically have next to no chance, or a pretty small chance, especially considering the health and how much that team is struggling right now. So I still believe, I know there are scenarios in which Week 18 is meaningless and Pittsburgh has it clinched by then, and if they do, then hooray, huzzah! I'm happy for that. But I still believe Week 18, Steelers Ravens for all the marbles. Winner gets the 4 seed, clinches the AFC North. Loser goes home, and you can bet your bottom dollar that's going to be the Sunday night game should that scenario take place.
I wonder, can the Colts be eliminated this week if they lose to San Francisco? Because they would be at that point. They would be 8-7. Obviously, I think they could potentially be eliminated unless they win. I guess there is a scenario maybe where they could still win the South outright. But I think if things go the wrong way for them, even Indianapolis could be eliminated this week. And if that happens, then you're down to 8 teams for 7 spots, right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know for sure if they can be eliminated. I would think that either they would be mathematically or just so unlikely that they're virtually eliminated, but we'll see. The picture will get clearer each week.
All right.
All right, Dave, let's go into the Steelers Dolphins All-22 review. Both had a chance to fly through the tape from last night or yesterday. So let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Any different impressions or any specific takes on this offense after watching the All-22?
Not globally, no. I did go back and watch, tried to pay real close attention to the play of Dylan Cook at left tackle there, and to see how much help he got, to see how quick the ball was getting out, and then watch kind of spot watch him in the running game overall. Here, first and foremost, when you look at snap to throw times for the Pittsburgh Steelers this past game against Miami, Aaron Rodgers had where did it go? Hold on, let me refresh it here real quick. He had like his second or third quickest snap to throw time of the season, specifically 2.32 snap to throw time for Aaron Rodgers against the Dolphins. That was his third quickest snap to throw time according to Next Gen Stats for the season. So that's first and foremost. He was getting the ball out quick overall against that defense, and obviously we talked about his average intended air yards and his average completed air yard distance and on. Obviously, when he's not having to hold the football that long, it puts less stress on the pass protection there. So let the record show that was his third, as far as games go, third quickest snap to throw time there. And that obviously impacts how long, Dylan Cook has to hold his blocks and all like that. When you go through each and every one of those pass reps, I think I counted 4 times in total where he received maybe some sort of help in the form of a tight end or a running back chip. These weren't extravagant 110% efforts on those, but they were still slowed the pass rusher down to some degree, and most of them tended to be kind of the wide 9 technique for whatever pass rusher was on that side. The rest of the time he was on his own. And I thought he represented himself extremely, extremely well. Now, once again, it's all relative to how quick the ball was coming out. That was happening quite a bit, obviously, in that game. I think there were 2 or 3 instances where he was asked to drop down and cut block on throws either his direction or the other direction, and I thought he performed those well. So, I mean, based on what he was asked to do and based on how quick the ball was coming out overall from Aaron Rodgers, I thought he did a fantastic job overall. And obviously the offensive line in totality, Aaron Rodgers was officially quarterback pressures 4 in this game, and the quarterback pressure percentage for the game was 13.3%, which was the second lowest of the season. The game against the Colts only had a lower quarterback pressure percentage, and obviously Aaron Rodgers got that ball out in that game in 2.14 seconds there. So pass protection, at least for what Dylan Cook was asked to do, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. The run game could have been better in the run game, I think, overall. But look, the offense as a whole, and I went through to look at the success rates based on expected point added percentages, which is the newfangled what everybody's falling in love with, and that usually tracks generally right along with the what we've used in the past, that if you get 40% or 45% of the yards needed on first down, 60% of the yards needed on second down, and then obviously 100% of the yards needed on third and fourth down. That those numbers generally track right along with each other there. The Steelers had a 50% success run rate when it comes to expected points added, and that's obviously not bad. I mean, they've had games better than that this season. I think their best on the season was 61.5% success rate, and that came in week 4 against the Vikings. And then a few weeks ago, they had a 57.1% success rate in a game that they lost. Who was that against? That would have been week 14, 13, week 12. Who did they play in week 12?
Chicago.
Chicago. They, but 50% successful run rate, expected points added. I thought, he could have been a little better in the run game overall, but top to bottom, collectively, run, pass, I thought he represented himself really well. So that was one of the main things that I went back, and he did so once again with very minimal help. I think 3 or 4 plays he had a chipper in some way, shape, or form.
Now, how much slide protection was he given with, say, Mahler to his side? I'm not quite sure the number on that, and how much time there was actual true help sliding that way, or just sliding because, say, Mahler was picking up an interior player that still left Cook one-on-one. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I mean, Cook was not babied in this one. I've certainly seen guys get a lot more help in first starts and debut performances than what Cook had in this one. And again, not facing some backup unknown pass rusher, facing Bradley Chubb for a lot of that game. And Chubb had 0 tackles for loss and 0 quarterback hits and 0 sacks. And yes, Rodgers getting the ball out quickly in the short pass game helped, but go watch the Scantling touchdown. Cook sealing Chubb upfield on play action on that one. He has his hands and feet work together well. He's got really good feet. He's a impressive plus athlete, and not even just the actual pass protection and run blocking, but no penalties. Clean operationally, all that stuff. Rodgers mixes up hard counts and quick counts and all that kind of stuff that was effective in this game, but it can be tough on the offensive line too to get used to that cadence. Remember the offseason Pittsburgh sent, this is kind of how the lengths teams will go, and understandably so, all trying to win, but they sent Rodgers' cadence in like tape to the offensive line. Like, go listen to his cadence in the offseason to get used to it. So obviously, Cook has been in practice and been around Rodgers and all that stuff, but not, getting those live reps is a different story. So even just putting aside the quality of the tape, which I think was good, just operationally, him being really sound in this one for that first start against a tough opponent is a really big positive.
Obviously, having gone through the tape, the All-22 several times, and along with the TV tape 3 times, you know the sequence of plays of what's coming at that point when you're watching. So within that, I tried to see if I could pick up maybe any kind of tells of him leaning or anything like that. I with Cook specifically, I didn't see any instances of that either.
And there was one play where the Dolphins ran a blitz off the edge, and initially Cook got eyes to the defensive end and then saw the blitz and then passed off the end of the tackle to Sayamalu and picked up the rusher. So you're not just facing some good pass rushers in Chubb and Chop Robinson and Judon, by the way, released by Miami. So Miami's really making some big changes here to close out the year, but you're facing an aggressive defense too that brings a lot of nickel pressure, and Minka and their DBs. Their DBs had 3 sacks on the season. Weaver had the 5th highest blitz rate of any DC in the NFL. So you're facing a defense that'll throw some different looks at you too. And I think Cook handled all that really well.
I do as well too. So that was one of the main things that I went through on the offensive tape to look at.
Let's keep giving the O-line some love. Fautanu's playing good football. Mason McCormick, no one's, even I've not talked about McCormick much, and shame on me for it. He's playing really good football. He's settled in. He's strong. His hand use is a lot better. His punch is better. He's really comfortable with the on-body sets that maybe he wasn't super comfortable with early on. I mean, he's just been playing steady, consistent football. I had the clip, and you saw it, of him dumping Sealer on that field goal block team and just kind of picking him up and pushing him down. So, his play has been really under the radar. And because it's been so good, when you're an offensive lineman and you're playing well, no one talks about you, and that's where you want to be. And McCormick's playing good football right now.
I agree. I agree there. I mean, across the line, they have grown, and you would like to see, especially when you get into playoff football here, and look specifically, these next 3 weeks here, you're going to face some pretty good defenses, right? In at least up front. I mean, the Lions have got some issues in the secondary going on and all like that, but they do have some stout linebackers and some stout guys up front there. So you'd like to see the run success rate be a little bit higher, and man, still looking for more of these 10+ yard runs, And obviously you got a nice
Sure.
one from you got 38 yards from Gainwell the other day, and how many more did they have over 10 yards in that game?
Not sure if there was another. You had the Warren 24-yarder that was called back on the Jonnu Smith hold, so that was unfortunately a big play. Negated it. I don't know if Gainwell had another. I don't think Warren had a run longer than 6 other than the one
You
that
had
was
the
negated.
Jonnu Smith one over there on
Okay, true.
on
The
the
14-yarder.
toss, 14 yards on the right side there. Good blocking all around by who was on that side? Spencer, Thielen,
In Washington.
and Washington over on that side. So they handled that real well over there. So yeah, you'd like to see, even though the success rate was fine at 50% on expected points added there. You get into playoff and cold, and you're gonna. You never know what the wind conditions are going to be, and you definitely want to lean on that run, especially with this offense moving forward here. So, look, I thought as a whole, the wide receivers and the tight ends blocked relatively well in this game, and specifically in the running game there. Washington, I thought, was above the line. Fryermuth probably could have been a little bit better in the run blocking game, but I mean, he is what he is, especially when he's on attached to the line of scrimmage there. And Jonnu's Jonnu. I mean, the hold really impacted his run blocking, grade overall, because it did negate a 20-something yard run there.
One guy who really blocked his tail off was Adam Thielen. I thought Thielen had multiple key blocks, including on the Jonnu Smith touchdown, making sure he's on the corner and the corner can't get off. The corner probably wasn't giving maximum effort, but I thought Thielen did a good job. I had the clip on that Gainwell 38-yard run, which was a great play by Gainwell, but you have Thielen coming down and kind of NBA boxing out the cornerback at the top and getting a literal kind of pat on the butt from Aaron Rodgers mid-play as Rodgers is running that downfield, and Rodgers looks back to Thielen kind of saying, hey, good job there. And there was one where Minka flew in and Thielen washed him down, and the back was able to bounce it out for just a couple yards, but saved probably a sure tackle for loss on that play. So I know that Thielen only had the one catch, which came on, 1st and 20, a little check down underneath for 7 yards, but I thought Thielen did some really important things in the run game.
And look, everybody talks about what DK Metcalf did to Minka Fitzpatrick on that touchdown catch that he had there. Calvin Austin came back and gave Minka a little bit a little extra something at the end of that play too. So props to him for getting involved in there.
Yeah, that's a great point. I noticed that the other night, and those are the RBIs that Arthur Smith talks about, the guys who are willing to do the little things and block downfield for teammates, and often those additional third-level blocks bring those big runs. And so it's no coincidence that Thielen has a good effort block on Gainwell's long run, and Austin has a good effort block on Metcalf's touchdown. Now, those are still great individual efforts by Gainwell and Metcalf, and so those guys should still get a ton of the credit, but it takes the whole team to pull these plays off. And Austin has not been playing great football, but still showing good effort. And that's all you can do right now is do the little things well. And I think Austin has always kind of been that kind of dude.
Agreed. And we talked the other day about how much 11 personnel this offense ran in this game and them running out of it. You would have liked them at least, we talked about, what was it, 12 run plays I think there were out of 11, and 7 of them were deemed kind of, successful runs there. Now, they never really they did have 2 9-yard runs, I think, in the game on that, so you like that. You would just like, and look, there were obviously several of those that had the tush push involved and all like that as well too there. So, would just like to maybe be able to see them run a little bit better, more consistently out of 11, but this was kind of game plan specific. It'll be interesting to see how much more 11 they go moving forward, heavy to that side there. So that's one thing that stuck out. As far as the passing game went, we already talked about that. Miami, the MO on them was the 2 deep shell with the safeties, and that kind of kept Aaron Rodgers from taking a lot of deep shots down the field. He was still 2 of 3 on the passes over 15 yards down the field. Heck, we rattled off only the 4 incompletions that he had in that game. There was a lot of dink and dunk. I think it was like 10 or 11 balls in general completed that were at or behind the line of scrimmage. The yak, we talked about the adjusted yak component and how big a role that played in the game. So that was obviously good to see, especially when you're not throwing the football down the field more than 15 yards at a time there. And then more specifically, and you hit on this the other day there, you 3 for 3 in the red zone. That will solve a lot of problems, whatever problems you might have in a certain game. Regardless if it be running, passing, or whatever. If you're down there that low that many times and you're 3 for 3, that means that there's at least 3 touchdowns there, right?
That's the analysis that you come here for.
I know.
But you're right. Big plays and red zone efficiency can cure a lot of problems and overcome a lot as an offense. And of course, if you're doing those things, you're getting big plays, you have an efficient red zone offense, you're probably doing a lot of things right in the first place to get to those moments and have those opportunities made for yourself. But definitely an asset in this one. I mean, to me, the big difference in the second half was Pittsburgh was breaking tackles. They were winning one-on-one matchups. First half, you had Warren getting dumped, Gainwell getting stopped. A lot of, Miami came out hitting. They were physical. Jordan Brooks, Minka, their DBs were making plays in open grass, and Pittsburgh was not getting broken tackles and yards after contact. Second half, that totally changed. Warren was running harder. Gainwell, the big 38-yarder, running through the safety, coming down in the alley. And so once, Metcalf breaking tackles. So once Pittsburgh started winning those one-on-one matchups, the floodgates really opened.
Yeah, if you want to dig deeper specifically about what you would have liked to seen better out of this offense in the game against the Dolphins, would have been a faster start, right?
Sure.
First quarter on into the second quarter, up until that last offensive, the 4th possession, which I believe was the last possession of the first half there. Yeah, you would like to see a faster start, ball control, and just hit the ground running there. But obviously, from that last possession of the first half on, when we already talked about four consecutive touchdown drives, and then you were able to kind of sit on the lead a little bit. And then obviously the one drive that we talked about that came out went run, run, run. Actually, they went run, 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 run. Right, the first
and then
3
play
runs.
action.
And then play action for a touchdown there. So if anything, if there's any real tougher criticism here, I guess overall when it comes to the offense against the Dolphins, it would have been you would have liked to have seen a faster start. I'm about ready for that streak of 64 games of 10 points or 7 points or fewer in the first quarter to end.
Well, it's a team record, so you'd love for it to end and not get close to the NFL record, which is 80-something. I think Pittsburgh would have to go into week 3 of 2027 to break that mark, which hopefully doesn't come to pass. Yeah, the question is, why was Pittsburgh slow starting in this game? To me, they just weren't physical enough. Miami was the more physical team. They were whooping blocks, making tackles, not getting yards after contact. Pittsburgh's backs weren't. And so once Pittsburgh started becoming the more physical team in the second half, that's when they turned the tide.
Yeah, you need to get off the bus ready to go here, and you're going to probably have to do that on Sunday against the Lions.
Oh, yeah. Pittsburgh using the middle of the field more. Some smashed seam concepts. The RPO game was working, had that kind of glance route to Frymouth on the RPO that got you a big play, and so utilizing that grass. Of course, the Metcalf touchdown over the middle. Miami playing a lot of too high. You had Frymouth sitting down, I think, on 3rd down against cover 2 of the linebackers, running down the seam, and Frymouth just sits it down and catches it, turns upfield. So Pittsburgh utilizing the entire field. I mean, they didn't really throw deep in much in this game. It really wasn't there for Pittsburgh to throw it, but they certainly made good use of the between the numbers.
Just the one interceptable ball, right? Turnover worthy throws by Aaron Rodgers. So just
Which one was
that
that?
was the one that was the low one that was
Oh,
almost picked
Brooks.
off by
Yeah,
Brooks.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, Rodgers tried to look off, I think, look left, and then tried to come back right to Frymouth, and did not throw a great ball there.
All right. Other than that, and obviously the 3 sacks, one of them Aaron took late in the game there. Uh, yeah, that's it.
All right, Dave, flipping over to the defense, what stuck out to you?
Success rate in the run game or lack thereof when it comes to the Dolphins. Right from the get go out. Look, you open up, you give up the 20-yard explosive play, and even they said on the broadcast how many people expected maybe the way the Dolphins had been able to run the ball to boot out that way, and they just obviously weren't ready for that. But the run game overall. You had the early 15-yard run to A-Chain out to the right side. I went back and restudied that, and I think maybe you're right. If Malik Harrison's able to scrape quicker or read that better up over the top, maybe that one doesn't bust. He got kind of hung up in a gap, inside gap there, and didn't get off that quick enough to the outside there. But other than that, and we talked about, I think they had later in the game, they had, what was it, 11 or a 12-yard run after the game was pretty much in hand at that point. They did a really good job, and the Lions only ran the ball 4 times in total in the second half for 11 or 12 yards. So you knew going into this game that you had to stop the run, and the offense, the effectiveness of the Steelers' own offense helped play in a role into good defense. They were able to get off the field on some key third down situations. Queen coming through on that 1 third down for the tackle for the loss was pretty huge in that game. So look, you knew going in you had to stop the run, and they did that. And then the offense scoring like they did for the Steelers really just took that run game away from the Dolphins in the second half there. And the other aspect there, how much did they blitz in this game, the Steelers on defense? I didn't look at that. Look at the percentage rate there.
I'll pull up my charting. It depends. There's always that debate about what is a blitz, the definition of a blitz. Pittsburgh dropped the edge rushers a ton in this game. They brought and blitzed Malik Harrison quite frequently in this one. So I don't know if you count those as blitzes or not. So it depends. Do you count off-ball rushes as blitzes? Do you just call that 5-man rushes as a blitz? What is your definition?
Unexpected rushers.
Okay, so even a 4-man rush with the inside linebacker coming per my numbers, if I can try to pull it up here. It was a decent amount because Harrison did blitz a good amount in this game. Let's see, 33 total chances. I got blitzes on 12 of them. So the quick, more public math is 36.4% blitz rate.
All right. And I think you hit on a key component there, the way they were dropping some of those guys there really had Tua confused. And Tua in rhythm is when Tua is at his best. And for the most part, outside of, I think, maybe three completions maybe down the field, they were able to do that. And he just did not know where to go with the ball. And you have a film room, I believe, up this morning on the Jalen Ramsey blitz and how well that was disguised. And by the time he knew it was coming, he was running away from it, and he did not know where to go with the football. So that was a very easy sack, if there is such a thing in the NFL, when it comes to the Steelers, and they really caught the Dolphins offense off guard on that one.
Yeah, Pittsburgh plastered well in coverage. The Peyton Wilson sack, there's nothing there for Tua. Should have thrown it away, but he was just kind of seeing deer in the headlights. It felt like in that game. That was those long snap to throw times that I pointed out, that 3.37 mark, which is a highest, lowest, worst, whatever you want to call it, mark for Tua. Pittsburgh was in their base defense about 2/3 of the time. I hadn't checked it for the rest of the season. I'm going to take a safe guess and say they've not been in base more often this season than they were in this one, which is part of Miami's personality. They use multiple tight ends with Waller and Dulcich and a fullback in Ingold, so you kind of lend itself to that sort of game. But Pittsburgh wanting to commit to stop the run obviously also keeps you in base more, and it does have your linebackers drop into coverage. It's probably one reason why the pass rush was more muted. I didn't love the pass rush in this game, but they dropped these guys into coverage so much there were fewer opportunities per my charting. Highsmith dropped into coverage 11 times in this game, Herbig 6, and Jack Sawyer 8. And so these guys are doing a lot on their feet and dropping back in the coverage in this one. And some of those, you had the inside linebacker blitzes. You had a couple other creative looks off of it, but probably one explanation for why the pass rush in terms of your edge rushers, your defensive line. I still thought the D-line could have done a better job getting pressure. Benton was kind of quiet in this one. Wyatt Black has a long way to go as a pass rusher. Hayward, though, certainly made some plays, and he was really good against the run in the second half and kind of just showing that he's still old man Hayward and still has the fastball.
Yeah, he took it to that rookie pretty good. There's a great clip from NFL Films about that young left guard talking to Cam Hayward after the game and asking him, where do I need to get better and all. It was nice of Cam to take a little bit of time and talk to him about that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. A rookie, second-round pick trying to find his way. Hayward just said, keep your confidence high, be less predictable, which probably means less predictable in your sets and your punch and how you play things. But a nice moment there, Hayward imparting some wisdom. But yeah, defensively, it was a good performance. Queen, I thought, was really strong. The third down stops, the Tua slide, the third down tackle for loss on Ollie Gordon, but even just beating Brewer on some blocks, a really good center, Queen did. So I just thought Queen played one of his better games of the season.
Yeah, and this effectively for at least the Steelers defense was a 2.5 quarter game, right? Now they got a little lackadaisical, obviously, or just playing a lot of zone, just not trying to get beat over the head. And I forget what the stat was. We had about 100, and I don't know, what was it, 80 or 40 yards of passing came after the game was pretty much in hand at that time for the Dolphins. Waller's going to, you forget sometimes the other team's paid to play as well too, and they've got stars. And Waller made a couple of great catches on a couple of touchdowns. You had the other backup tight end drop the effectively a 2-point conversion there, and Jalen Ramsey was giving him hell on that one after he dropped it and all, but. Yeah, I mean, the defense, Miami wasn't built. Miami was out of, they just, and they were not, they didn't have any urgency there. That was called out later on in the game there. They just were ready to get out of that stadium at that point. And that Dolphins offense, once you took away their running game and got them down a couple of scores, they're just not built with Tua to come back from that.
Yeah, they have to have a good run game. They have to be balanced, and they couldn't be in the second half, and that really showed. Pittsburgh played a pretty simple game, didn't have a lot of personnel groupings, basically 3-4, and nickel was all they ran. They ran their overfront out of their base 3-4 twice, and that was effective, which they hadn't run a whole lot this year. But, a couple coverage rotations, a good disguise on the Ramsey sacks, but pretty simple, but that's fine. Sometimes it just needs to be simple, just play good fundamental football, and Pittsburgh did. No communication busts that I saw. Maybe lost a tight end one play on kind of not a Y leak, but kind of lost a tight end way backside. I wonder if Detroit's going to try to threaten with that, but just played clean. You didn't have penalties. You didn't have missed tackles, not a ton of them at least. You didn't have communication busts. You didn't give up a lot of big plays. You do those things, you're going to play good football.
And as you brought up the other day, you got some decreased snap counts by some of these core guys on defense as well too later on in the game.
Yeah, really important to have these guys. Now, that's no guarantee of success. I remember going back to the Browns game where Pittsburgh got to rest Hayward and Watt, and that felt like a really big thing on that short week, that turnaround for the Bengals game Thursday, and ultimately Pittsburgh still got destroyed by Cincinnati in the run game in that one, in the pass game too. So it does not guarantee that Pittsburgh is going to have a great game against Detroit, but would you rather play 70 snaps or 40 snaps on a short week facing Detroit? I'll take 40 snaps late in the season for an older entire defense. So, it doesn't hurt to have that.
Agreed.
Anything else? Just trying to look through my notes here. I'm really excited Derek Harmon's going to come back, but I have been happy with the development of Wyatt Black, Otomewa with the sack, which was nice. And I guess that probably means it for Logan Lee. So that near sack, Tua is probably going to be maybe his last moment of the season unless more injuries occur.
Yep. You would think probably, and we'll see if Martin Rhodes survives his roster spot this week, but you could see him and Lee both inactive this game against the Lions, assuming Derek Harmon is back in the fold.
Especially that Wyatt Black can probably more comfortably go back to be the backup nose tackle. He was pulling double duty as starting end and backup nose tackle. Now he's rotational and backup nose tackle, and it kind of makes Martin Rhodes a little less redundant, or a little more redundant, I should say, and his 3 weeks have expired, right, in terms of the time he needed to basically be on Pittsburgh's 53?
Yeah, that sounds right there for sure. And also, look, a decree. It'll be good to have YA Black concentrate on a fewer amount of snaps. Hopefully.
Yeah, I think so. I'm certainly not going to hurt late in the season. Also, the secondary was not tested much in this game, but Porter continues to play good football. Some of the charts and metrics that have come out continue to show him one of the best cover corners in the NFL. Samuel, the interception, which was nice. Eccles didn't have to do a whole lot in this one, but the secondary doing a nice job. Sue Duggar, they gave him a touchdown, but Ramsey, a good game. So just shouting those guys out too.
I forgot to look at Josh Carney's post. How many missed tackles in this game?
I want to say it was 10. I think Queen had 2 and led the way, but overall it was a cleaner performance than certainly other games this season. All right, Dave, special teams. Love watching Ben Skoranek. Dude has playing with one arm, basically has the cast. I mean, the 4 snaps he got on offense were all in the tush push, which is very Ben Skoranek for a one-handed kind of dude out there just trying to do whatever he can to help, but still making plays on special teams. See how fired up Waitman was when Skoranek batted that ball back into the field of play to avoid the touchback on that one, helping out your punters net a little bit. So Skoranek still doing his thing. Coverage teams have been good. Again, I think Christian Kuntz has struggled with his snaps, and so I want to see that get better.
All right. I didn't spend a lot of time going back through the special teams all-22.
Herbig, I don't know exactly when Herbig got hurt. I thought it was on one of those pass rushes that he had sliding around the corner, but then he was out there for punt team. He was not moving almost at all. So I think he was probably injured before that moment because he was just walking downfield on one of the returns that Miami had. So not sure why he was still out there on punt team, but the hamstring injury is certainly going to be one to watch.
All right. If he is slowed, we'll see if Watt can come back this week or not.
And if not, you lose both those guys. I mean, you have some confidence in Sawyer, but then you look at depth and it's just you want to have some of those guys out there against the high-powered Detroit offense.
You really do.
And say Malu had gotten hurt, you can see the clip. I think I forgot to post it to Twitter. I might do it in a little bit. He was trying to, extend his arms to punch, and you see him immediately grab his arm. So I didn't love the look of that play.
All right, so we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. Today's being how this short week is, I don't know. Today might be an estimated practice or injury report.
Yeah, it could be, or maybe just a lighter, lower key practice. I'm sure they're not going to be hitting there doing anything like that, but we'll see. I mean, the good news is, say Malu still wasn't ruled out this week, so that if he had a pure tear or something, then I assume that would be more known, or certainly would not be opening the door for him to play this week. But also Tomlin spoke so soon after, from the Monday night game to Tuesday morning, that I don't know how much he really got information-wise on the health of this team. So I'd be surprised if, say, Malu played, but we'll see. He's obviously played through some of this stuff before. You do look at that offseason conversation that we had, just a week or two ago, about do you re-sign this guy? And he's playing some good football this year, but he's got a bunch of bicep issues, a tricep issue. There was the bicep or tricep issue last year, or the pec. It was a pec issue last year. And I just worry about that as he gets older.
Oh, I forgot to go back and look. When Mike Tomlin was running down the injuries, did he call it? I know after the game he called it tricep. Did he call it pec yesterday, or did he call it tricep again?
I would have to look. I'm not sure if I thought he said tricep, but I'd have to look at my quote, if you have the transcript up. If he did he even say exactly what the injury was?
I thought he did. I might be mistaken here. Let's see. Derek Carmen, blah, blah, blah. Some of the other two.
I'm looking at the quote. I don't see him say the injury. He just says Isaac Seumalo got hurt last night. I don't know what his status is as I stand here today, but I would imagine he's certainly going to be limited at the early portions of the week. So never actually said what the injury was.
All right.
Tuesday.
All
right, Dave. Any other final thoughts?
No, that's got it. Good team win for this team, and that's and I think, as we had answered one of the questions the other day on the podcast here, I think the biggest takeaway here is this is 2 back-to-back good games, specifically for the offense too. So you won down the field, and you won with kind of a little bit of a muted, deeper passing game, and you saw the run game come alive a bit in the second half against the Dolphins as well. So you got 2 games games positive just overall as far as team wins go as you go into this big game against the Lions?
Let me ask you this question, Dave. I was listening. I don't often listen to commentary around the media landscape unless I have to if we're going to write something, but I was listening to Dan Patrick yesterday, and the question was, are the Steelers a threat? Are the Steelers a threat for other potential playoff teams should Pittsburgh get into the dance? What is your take on that? Is Pittsburgh a threat? How much should we take into stock these last two victories?
You still have questions, obviously, on both sides of the football as far as consistency goes. If this team's going to make any type of run uh, in the playoffs, the defense has got to be more consistent. We've seen what the offense can do. You obviously want to get in situations where you're able to push the football down the field to some degree. I think one of the biggest takeaways too is, look, you still were able to have in totality 5 explosive plays against the Dolphins, 2 of them obviously being connections more than 15 yards down the field, but you had some others yards after the catch, and then the one technically explosive play was the 7-yard gain by Freiermuth that had the 15-yard penalty tacked onto it there. I don't care how you count them. 20-yard, moving the football down the field, 20 yards down the field at a time is 20 yards or more down the field at a time. So you had 4 standard, 5 in totality, and one of those obviously was the run by Kenneth Gainwell. You love seeing those near double explosive runs there. So it feels like the offense, at least in the last 2 games, has seen that consistency, obviously, that you want to see. The question is can the defense shore up? So to me, if this team is going to make a playoff run, we got to see more of the same out of the offense, and we just got to see the defense be better against good teams that can run the football.
They were doing a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the greatest threat. How much of a threat is Pittsburgh right now? Where would you slot them on that scale?
6.25.
Okay, a very immediate and specific number. I gave them a 5. That's what Dan Patrick gave them too. I think what I could say about them, I don't think they're at that threat status quite yet, but they're a team on the rise, playing the best football down the stretch, and that's where you want to be as an outfit.
All right, you gave them a 5 then, right in the middle. What would you have had to see more of better to get them slightly over 5, to get them in the 6 category?
Still want to see the run defense be better. The run defense on its face wasn't great in this game. It was great because Miami couldn't run the ball because of the game script and Pittsburgh possessing the football so much. But, to a man, it still wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. Now, getting Harmon and TJ Watt back will all be important in that, obviously. But, I still want to just see this offense be able to have those faster starts as you talk about. It was a slog early on, still hit some more chunk plays. And then also, against a more quality opponent like Detroit, you want to be able to check that box too. So, it's moving in the right direction, obviously, this team, but I want to see them continue to stack, continue to do this because this team has been so darn inconsistent this year. And I'm still a little cautious of, is this worm going to turn? Will the other shoe drop at some point and this team sort of regress? And so can they really stack and play consistently good football down the stretch, week in and week out? That's going to be the key, and that's what I'm looking for.
And look, this is as we said at the top of the show, this is a great test this week. Now, you're obviously not going to have to play in any kind of elements whatsoever, but this is a team in the Lions that can both run the football and throw the football, right? So your defense is going to get a good test this week against a 2-headed monster at running back, and boy, they got some receivers over there as well too.
It's funny, both teams are 8-6, but Detroit feels like a different 8-6, different caliber of 8-6 than Pittsburgh. But Detroit also has a bunch of injuries defensively in the secondary, so that's where they're weak at. But their offense can certainly score, and Pittsburgh, if they will upset and beat Detroit, will have to match points for points.
Did you see that meme floating around of Tiger Woods and John Daly, 2 8-6 teams and how different kind of they looked? And that cracked. I had tears in my eyes looking at that thing because, and I will save this obviously for our beat writer on Friday here, but why are the Lions 8-6,
Yeah, I had just started doing the tape study on them. I did some before the Miami game to try to get ahead of the curve. I mean, their injuries in the secondary have been an issue. They're playing in a really competitive NFC North, and so I'm sure that's also a factor as well. So those are probably the two things that I would look at. That's a team that was kind of gutted their coaching staff. They lost their DC, they lost their OC, they lost a bunch of assistant coaches too, and those guys went to places. And the Jets OC, I think, was with Detroit last year too, and of course Randall L's in Chicago. So that's a lot of change there. Dan Campbell took over play calling duty at some point this season and tried to right the ship. So they had a lot to kind of work through, and so that's probably a big reason why they have stumbled some this year.
All right. But it's a good litmus test all the way around this week. So,
Yep.
We'll see. Like to see more of what we've seen, even better, maybe on both sides of the football. And it's probably going to take that for them to win this game, to be quite honest with you.
What is higher, your confidence in Pittsburgh being a threat or Aaron Rodgers' adjusted yards per passing attempt? What is his number? You had 6.25. I think Rodgers is above that. 6.51.
Okay. So it's getting there.
I mean, your number is, I know I always ask you this question, but 6.2 is kind of your minimum benchmark?
Especially if you got a defense that's playing well, and on the defense, what are they, a defensive side of football, right?
Yeah, let's check in. What we got here on
team defense, just a net yards per passing attempt stat.
Probably 6.5-ish, I'm going to guess.
It is 5.9.
Wow. All right.
So
And offensively,
it's getting there.
And offensively, as a team, I guess it's 6.5 something with Rodgers making up the bulk of the plays.
Real quick here.
Sans Rudolph's start.
You are at 6.3.
Okay. So you tell me, are those numbers enough of a threatening team?
Historically, it tells you that anytime you're plus 0.5 or better, you got a good chance of being in the playoffs. And what did we say they were? 6.3 and 5 point what?
9. So they're about plus 0.4.
Yeah. So they're a borderline playoff team. Now, obviously, the last couple of weeks have been better.
Right.
But whatever you gained in both those stats, you could give back quite quickly in this game against the Lions here. So they are, in my opinion, a borderline playoff team right now, and that's exactly what they are.
Yeah, it's funny how these numbers match up. So that's perfect, I think, analysis of the stat.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Dave, let's get to some read emails and close out today's show.
All right, we will start with Dr. Brett Nile back in the email machine. Wally Pip. I have a feeling I know which way this one's going here. He have a couple of questions about the tackle position. If Cook continues to play like he did in this game for the rest of the season, could he essentially Wally Pip Broderick Jones? He says, what is Cook's contract status? I assume he's not an unrestricted free agent. With Broderick's season now over, will the team pick up his fifth-year option? Would you? Alex and I have been still split. And as I mentioned a couple of shows ago, once the season's over, I'm going to go back all the way through every snap that Broderick Jones played.
We'll go through both. We're going to go through both of this.
Yeah. To see, if I change my opinion on it. But right now, at least from what I've seen, I'm hedging towards the side of them not doing it. Whereas Alex, you're almost unequivocally thinking that they will or should.
I'm not. I don't know, unequivocal might be a little strong, but I think they will. I think they should. So I don't know exactly what my level of confidence in that is. But okay, here is what was the big issue with Broderick Jones in 2024, Dave? What would you say his number one issue was?
Just his hand usage, his punch usage, his getting his hands up and using his hands better.
To me, it was even more fundamental than that. His focus, his mental state of being attentive to detail, knowing snap count, knowing the play, had so many of those issues last year. And to me, he's been locked in all year. Few penalties, maybe one the entire season, I think. No real mental mistakes, was assignment sound, locked in, showed up in great shape, really just kind of rededicating himself to the game. And so to me, his confidence was higher, mentally was in a much better place, even injured. You saw the clips of him, I think, last week against the Ravens, whatever it was, of him being super excited on the sideline still with a headset on. Like, he is dialed in. And so that's where I needed this guy to be. Was the tape great as a left tackle? It was okay. I think it's certainly gotten better. But to me, the big question was kind of, and Pat Meyer talked about this, like if this guy just focuses, the talent's all there. And so for me, I think in 2025, he really kind of locked in, showed up with the right mindset, carried that throughout the season. Of course, stayed healthy until the injury happened, that freak injury against Chicago. So that's kind of how I view him, even more so than just the actual tape, is how was he mentally? And to me, he was in a much better place in 25 than 24.
The other thing that we're playing with within this, and this is all tackles and really the pass protection in general, is Aaron Rodgers has for the season is tied with Tua for the quickest snap to throw time at 2.65 seconds according to Next Gen Stats. So you're getting the ball out that quick consistently over that many games, and here we are in through week 15 of the season. There's how tested really has this offensive line really been in totality from a stand up for protection time?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. It's certainly been friendlier, but that's true of all the linemen. And you can still pick out enough snaps to evaluate Broderick Jones, just in the way that we evaluated Dylan Cook and are singing his praises, even though Aaron Rodgers got the ball out really quickly overall in this game. So over the course of how many snaps Jones played this year, 500, 700, whatever the figure is, you can there's still enough of a sample size, even knowing the structure of the offense. And I'm not advocating for Jones just because mentally he was better. The tape was good too. It wasn't high end. It wasn't this elite top tackle in the NFL, but it was much better than 2024 as well. I think a lot of that has to do with his focus and kind of buy-in.
If you're going to pick up a fifth-year option on a guy like that, to me, he'd better be in the top 15 of left tackles in the league. And I just don't see him as being there yet. And look, another thing we got to go through too is how much, there were several games there stretch when he was playing that he was getting his fair share of help over on that side.
Yeah, I mean, he was getting some, but it didn't seem like a crazy amount where they were so dedicating help to him that it was impossible to evaluate Jones himself. So, and if Dylan Cook plays well and what that looks like, I mean, to me, that's just good problems to have good tackles. Maybe Cook's probably your swing guy next year, and I'd be happy about that. So, I think you keep watching with Dylan Cook, assuming he starts Sunday, which is still not cemented yet. We'll have to see about Pete's health and any decision the team makes if both guys are available. But to me, it's just all good problems to have because it's hard to find good tackles. Most teams are dying for tackle help, and if Pittsburgh can find a gem in Cook, then kudos.
And as far as Cook, the question about Cook, Wally Pipp, and Broderick Jones, you're going to have to see a lot more tape on Cook.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's got to be unequivocally head and shoulders better than what you think Broderick Jones has been and what you think Broderick Jones will be. So, look, I am as excited as the next guy. I enjoyed watching the tape on Cook, going more in depth against against the Dolphins, but this is one game and the ball was out quick. I mean, come talk to me, assuming Cook even starts. Come talk to me at the end of the regular season after 3 more games and hopefully into the playoffs as well, too, before we're talking about a Wally Pipp type situation.
And to momentarily be a Debbie Downer on Dylan Cook, to give the other argument, I think in some ways it helps when you're an unknown player to the opposition. Like Bradley Chubb probably didn't have a lot of insight on the type of player that Dylan Cook is. You can go back and watch some preseason tape, but it's preseason tape. It's from August. When you're kind of the unknown and you're Dylan Cook and you know exactly how Bradley Chubb operates, what his rush plan is and all that kind of stuff, and Chubb is trying to kind of figure you out mid-game, that's an advantage for an offensive lineman in some ways. And then TJ Watt has talked about that. Like he kind of would rather go against the veteran that he knows than kind of this new face. That's why he struggled against some of these backup new faces before, because he doesn't know really how to approach them. So if Cook continues to start as there's more tape on him, can he sustain that as defenses get kind of familiar with his game? That's going to be a truer test. And of course, you're going to face Myles Garrett in 2 weeks.
Exactly. And Dylan Cook is under contract currently for 2026. Right now. So,
is he? He signed a 2-year deal, or he signed like RFA or something?
Usually when you come up off the practice squad, in those situations with those guys, they sign 2-year deals.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was all 1-year deals. Okay. Well, problem solved then.
All right. And so assuming he survives the roster 2026, I think he'd be an unrestricted free agent after the 2026 season.
He has enough accrued seasons where he would be unrestricted and not do the whole exclusive rights and RFA, or has he already kind of gone through that?
He's listed as already having 2 accrued seasons, I think, going into this year. Because didn't he?
His
He
first
was
year,
on
he was on the roster. He was on the roster his first year as inactive, right?
and
That
then he was
whole
on IR and got accredited for that last season, I think, right?
yeah, he spent the first half of last year on IR, so you get okay, that makes sense. Fair enough.
And then obviously this is his 3rd season. He'll have more than the games to get accredited season. So 3, and then next year would make 4. So he'd be an unrestricted free agent after
Good deal.
2026 there. So as far as that goes. So we're a long ways away from talking about Dylan Cook. Look, it'd be a great problem to have if you're even talking about, because you could potentially get yourself in a position where you don't have to draft a tackle, right? Period.
Sure, if you could run it back with the tackles you have now, essentially of Jones and Fautanu, because even if you decline the option on Jones, he's back in 26, and Dylan Cook. Then did Calvin Anderson sign a 2-year deal?
Seemed like he did, right?
I want to say he did. So then if that could be your 4th tackle, competing for a spot come the summer.
He did. He
yeah,
did. He signed through 2026. Yeah.
In that world, you're set.
All right. Thanks for the email, Brett. Lane Honia writes in, "Hey guys, thanks for everything y'all do on the show. My family and I got to the Steelers and Dolphins game on Monday night, coming all the way from San Angelo, Texas. The atmosphere was awesome. San Angelo, isn't that where Brett Miles from? We got 2 guys from San Angelo, Texas, back to back, unless this is Brett Nile posing to somebody else, which I don't think it is. Anyway, he came all the way from San Angelo, Texas. We need to put these 2 in. I don't know, maybe they know each other, but the atmosphere was awesome, and I'm just very thankful we did not have to be a part of any Fire Tomlin chants. We're all huge Tomlin fans. Watching Ben and the Hall of Honor inductees was a special moment. Have either of you guys been to a Steelers game in stadium? And if so, what is the core memory you have from going? If y'all haven't been, what is one of your favorite Steeler moments from any time? We've answered the whole Steeler moments thing from any time there. I have not been to a Steelers game in either Three Rivers or Acrisure. Obviously not born and raised there, not living there. I've been to Pittsburgh twice, I think, in total there. So I have seen Steeler games. I went to 1 regular season game in my lifetime, and that was in Jacksonville many, many moons ago in the mid-90s, the week 1 game there, the game that Greg Lloyd tore up his knee. So I probably should not go to regular season games. And I've been to, I don't know, 4 or 5 preseason games over the years. I got to see Michael Vick make his preseason debut as a member of the Atlanta Falcons many moons ago there. So that's about it. How many Steeler games have you been to in stadium in Pittsburgh?
Not a lot, not in a while. Obviously, the nature of the job that you and I do now make it where, working at home is the best thing to do. I have some bad core childhood memories of those Raiders losses. I think the one where Ryan Mundy had gotten a penalty, or was it Gradkowski with the Raiders that upset Pittsburgh, where the Raiders were always a thorn in the Steelers' side. It wasn't. I don't think it was the Terrell Pryor game. I think it was whenever Gradkowski was starting for the Raiders that game. So I'm trying. I mean, there's some preseason games. That's probably maybe the last regular season game I had attended. Well, obviously, I was at the stadium for 2021 for the training camp that was held at then the artist formerly known as Heinz Field, because it couldn't be in St. Vincent because of the COVID stuff. So that was the last time I was kind of at the stadium. But yeah, don't have a lot of games there. Just tickets were expensive as a kid, couldn't afford it, and then the job came in, and here we are.
And when I was a kid, I was about 11 or 12 years old. I went to a preseason game on, I believe it was Monday Night Football preseason game against the Atlanta Falcons at Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. And that was obviously one of early memories as a fan of the team way back there.
So that's a sporting event you've gone to.
What's the what?
Last sporting event, even non Steelers, even non football necessarily, but last
went to I love hockey. I love minor league hockey, and I think just this past off season when we went out to San Diego, we took in a San Diego goals hockey game there at that old barn that they have over there, and that was very enjoyable.
Nice. What about of the main professional sports, MLB, NBA, NHL? You get to a Golden Knights game at all? Didn't you go when they first kind of came into town?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. That's been many moons ago now at this point. And then baseball, I've seen a couple of Pirates games at PNC Park.
Oh, really? When was the last one that you went to?
Actually, I take that back. I've been to one, I think,
Okay.
and I think that was the year that PNC opened.
Oh, wow.
So way back, 2000. What year would that have been?
That's a good question. When did PNC Park open? It was right around Heinz Field, wasn't it? Aren't those stadiums about the same age?
Feels like it, but
Yeah, opened 2001.
been to several baseball games. Saw the Pirates last off season when they went to Colorado. We were in Denver for that. Saw that. So yeah, look, I don't do well in large crowds at this point in my life either. So I usually stay away from packed stadiums.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, good
All
question. Thank you
right,
for it.
Jason Higgins writes in, congratulations, Alex. I would like to be the first to thank Alex for continuing his streak of wrong predictions on the outcome of Steeler games. Obviously, I'm just busting your chops, he writes. You guys do a fantastic job. Alex, I would be curious to know your record this year when in picking. You put those up every week on the site, right? Do you know what your record is for picking Steelers games this year is?
I am eliminated from playoff contention. I can tell you that much. I am now 4-10. I want to say it's not
Wow.
great. It's not great. But listen, somebody has to be wrong. It's a tough job. Somebody's got to do it, and I wear it with pride. So you're welcome for the reverse jinxes.
All right. He says this team has been so Jekyll and Hyde this year. You never know which team is going to show up. You guys keep up the good work. And Alex, remember, keep picking opposite of what you want to happen. You are
You got it.
you are some sort of backwards good luck charm, Jason writes there. So there's that. Let's take another one. We took this one the other day. How about one more from Chris Warren from the other day? Hey guys, big win last night in all phases. Can't wait to listen to the podcast today. Here are my questions. Where has Dylan Cook been all my life, or at least this season? And am I wrong to be fearful that he might regress once the staff starts trying to coach him up? See Broderick Jones, Kevin Dotson, etc. Chris, I mean, look, hopefully you enjoyed earlier in the show. We talked a lot about the game that Dylan Cook had against the Dolphins here. The only thing I can say is it was good tape for what he was asked to do once again, and stay tuned. We'll see if he has to start against the Lions on Sunday, and he's going against some good pass rushers over there, obviously, and hopefully we can keep continuing to talk about Dylan Cook, positive play, and the offensive line in general.
And listen, Pat Meyer deserves some credit. I've been critical of Pat Meyer, but this line's ascending. They're playing well. Guy like Cook is playing well. And he's been in this building with Pat Meyer, so I think Meyer gets some credit for having him ready for these moments. He's been coached up this whole time. It's not where the coaching starts today or anything. Where do these guys come from? That's football. That's the fun part. Who are some interesting stories like Dylan Cook's, where they hang around for a couple of years and they just suddenly emerge? And obviously, we don't know where Cook's story is going to go. James Harrison probably being the most famous example, a guy that was special teams on and off the roster, NFL Europe, and then finally got the chance and ran with it. Any other kind of similar recent ones, Dave?
The big Legursky.
Yeah, Doug Legursky. Was he on practice squad, I guess, for a while? Was that kind of his whole story there? Yeah. I mean, Spillane to some extent, although probably a little less so with Spillane. Mike Hilton spent a year on Pittsburgh's practice squad before, breaking out. But Cook has been on there for a couple of years now, so a little different. Yeah, Legursky's a good one.
Ramon Foster, well, he was a 53-man guy right out of the chute, but he was an undrafted guy, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking less undrafted and more of this guy that just hung around on the practice squad. Ryan McCullum's kind of like that. He was on the practice squad for a couple of years, and now he's consistently on the 53 and your backup center and getting left guard work. So kind of a similar story there. By the way, random tidbits of information. Doug Legursky's name, it's not Doug. His first name is not Doug. It's Wayne. It's Wayne Douglas Legursky, but he went by Doug. So the more you know.
All right, Steve McClendon, remember him?
Oh, yeah. That's a really good pull. He was definitely a practice squatter for a couple of years. I just remember that no one could spell his last name correctly. They added the extra C the second C in there, and it drove me up a wall. So that's a good pull by you.
I'm sure you'll find it misspelled on the site somewhere. How about Alejandro Villanueva?
Yeah, that's another good one. And it's funny how these things happen. Kelvin Beachum was it torn ACL, whatever the injury was to Beach, and that puts Villanueva in the lineup. And James Harrison gets his first start because Joey Porter gets ejected pregame for fighting with Cleveland. And it's just that you never know how you get your opportunity, but you get it, and that's what makes football fun.
Absolutely. All right. Got through a good portion of these here. If you got an email, as always, send it to theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. I think Aaron Rodgers talks today. I imagine Dan Campbell and some Lions players will talk today. We'll have you all covered there. Anything pertinent to come out of any of those. JJ Watt on McAfee today.
He does speak Wednesdays typically, so I imagine he will be on, yes.
All right, so maybe he'll be asked about the TJ Watt situation, so maybe we'll have something to pass along there, inside information there. Regardless, whatever happens with the Steelers, you can find it on SteelersDepot.com. And let's see, until Friday, as usual, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, follow the directions that way, get a username and password to take advantage of that. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.